From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 10 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Russ Riesinger. Tonight, more details about the weekend shooting that left one Billings man dead and landed another in jail facing murder charges. Yellowstone County Coroner Cliff Mahoney releasing the victim's identity today. 25-year-old Christian Henning died from multiple gunshot wounds. That shooting unfolding just before 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon in the parking lot of the Dairy Queen at 3220 Honesta Drive. Tonight, 30-year-old Raheem Callaway, who turned himself into authorities about 20 minutes after the shooting, faces charges of deliberate homicide. Authorities say the victim and suspect knew each other and had a dispute over Facebook, but what could lead to this? Q2's Janelle Slade is back out at the scene tonight to tell us what she learned today.
Russ, not only was this event captured on multiple surveillance cameras in the area, but several witnesses in the parking lot and in the area watched this all play out. And tonight we are learning this all had to do apparently with a $100 music recording deal between two local music producers. Much of the dispute played out over Facebook after the victim, 25-year-old Christian Henning, made the first post early Saturday morning, and the suspect, Raheem Callaway, fired back. This all went on for hours on Facebook until the two apparently agreed to meet here. Now, that's when court documents say that Raheem Callaway walked up to the victim's car, firing multiple shots, then put his gun through the window and shot one more time. Callaway then ran from the area, jumped into a silver car, and headed home. He later turned himself in. Callaway is expected to appear in district court tomorrow on homicide charges. Russ?
All right, thank you, Janelle. Tonight, Bighorn County has seen yet another COVID-19 related death as the number of coronavirus cases has reached the 5,000 mark statewide. That death, a man in his 70s, is now the 13th death in Bighorn County. Two deaths that were reported last week have since been removed as they were found to have taken place in a different county. Bighorn also reported 12 new cases tonight, while the state announced another 65 new cases and 2 more hospitalizations. 80 people are currently in hospitals across the state. 75 Montanans have died since the pandemic began. Almost 3,300 have now recovered. Well, moments after beginning his daily coronavirus briefing with reporters on live television, President Trump was escorted out of the room by an agent who had whispered into his ear. Tonight, the president says he's safe, though there are questions about how close someone with a gun may have gotten to him. CBS's Weijia Jiang is at the White House tonight.
President Trump abruptly left his news conference after shots were fired outside the White House, prompting Secret Service to clear the grounds. The president returned a few minutes later.
It seems that the person was shot by Secret Service. So we'll see what happens. And
congressional and White House negotiators continued blaming each other for collapsed talks.
Democrats said, our way or the highway.
Rather than compromise, Republican counterparts said take a hike.
In the meantime, the president vowed to act alone, signing 4 executive measures over the weekend.
My administration will provide immediate and vital relief to Americans struggling.
Not exactly. President Trump plans to postpone payroll taxes through the end of the year for workers making less than $100,000, but they'll owe the money later unless Congress acts. The president claimed he will prevent evictions, but has only directed federal agencies to consider whether halting evictions is necessary, and said he will extend federal unemployment benefits, though cutting them from $600 to $400 a week. Plus, 25% would have to be funded by cash-strapped states. Nebraska Republican Ben Sasse called Mr. Trump's plan unconstitutional slop, and even the president acknowledged legal challenges are likely.
The Constitution gives the lawmaking and spending baton to Congress. Here we have the president trying to take the lawmaking baton, arguably trying to take the spending baton away from Congress.
Weijia Jiang, CBS News, the White House.
Well, Democratic presidential candidate Joe Biden says he has picked his running mate, but isn't saying who it is just yet. Gretchen Whitmer, Kamala Harris, and Susan Rice are thought to be among the front runners, but there are about a dozen potential names that could be possible choices. Biden's expected to make his announcement this week. The Democratic presidential convention gets underway a week from today, but Biden has already said that he won't be accepting the nomination in person. All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. And Bob, we're talking about a not-so-common weather occurrence, a derecho.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. It lasts forever. It's like hours and hours, hundreds of miles long and hundreds of miles per hour. Let me show you what had happened today. This is what that derecho did as it made its way through the Midwest. Look at all the heavy showers and thunderstorms out of that. And it just really became a nasty thing as it moved through Iowa and parts of Illinois and even in towards parts of Michigan. But let me show you. Let's go back to Des Moines, Iowa today. This is the way it looked. Oh, my goodness. Hundreds of trees were knocked down with 100-mile-per-hour winds. One particular tree went right through the windshield of this mail truck. Fortunately, nobody was injured in that, but there were some injuries around parts of Iowa and parts of Illinois thanks to all the high gusty winds, and even some tornadoes fell out of that system today. So it was a very busy storm, continues to create cleanup, and in fact, there's over 1 million people out of power tonight in parts of Iowa, Illinois, also parts of Missouri, and even parts of Michigan. So it's been a wild night for them. For us, our weather's kind of tranquil, and we'll get to talk about it in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. It's day 4 of the 80th annual Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, and bikes are still rolling in. Sydney Thorson spoke with vendors and the transportation department to see how many visitors have made it to town so far.
From Friday to Sunday, about 160,000 motorcycles and other vehicles rolled into Sturgis for this year's motorcycle rally. That's down about 4% compared to the same time last year.
But that's a pretty typical change. And comparing this year's rally to each of the last 4 rallies since the 75th, it's pretty in line with those numbers.
Some vendors say they've been seeing about the same, if not more business than the same time last year.
It was 80th, so we were expecting a crowd a little bit bigger than what we're seeing. But with the whole COVID, we're not mad. I do see that we have more movement than what we had last year.
And now that the weekend's over, Alejandro Perez with Biker Clothing expects business to pick up.
We're expecting Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to be our busiest days.
Historically, John Sumala with the South Dakota Department of Transportation says today should be the rally's busiest day.
I expect today's numbers to be higher, and then Tuesday and Wednesday still pretty high but decreasing slightly, and then Thursday, Friday taper off considerably.
Before the COVID-19 pandemic hit, this year's numbers were expected to be similar to the 75th anniversary. During this same time in 2015, 236,000 vehicles pulled into Sturgis.
Being that it's more in line with what we've had the last 4 years, that makes it kind of your typical rally.
A typical rally at a not-so-typical time.
Well, still to come on the MTN 10 o'clock news here on Q2. President Trump's new Postmaster General already making waves. We're going to hear from Montana's congressional delegation on how it's affecting the post office. And in sports, we're going to hit the mats and meet 2 guys in Missoula who are helping take the UFC to new heights.